Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and wherever you are, welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And here we are out in the deep green. Look at this place. And this isn't even the nicer part. Anyway, but I'm on my neighbor's deck about half a mile down the Logan Road. And anyway, how you doing, right? Did you guys get the first show, the morning show? This is the afternoon show. It's 5 something here. So if you guys jump in and we start to have a good conversation like we kind of had the other, it was almost a leaning back towards the good old days of the cadre. Anyway, here we are. What do you see around you? What's going on? How are the tariffs treating you? Right? How you doing on that? You know, how you like Donald Trump as your president? You ready for nuclear war?
Over time, there are attacks on goods. I mean, you know, the tooth fairy doesn't pay up. I mean, and
That's Warren Buffett.
And then what? You always have to ask that question.
That's Warren Buffett. Right. Let's see. We'll go back to the beginning.
This one, because Warren Buffett may have just hinted at something that lines up perfectly with Trump's planned market crash. And no, that's not a conspiracy theory. It's a mix of 4 very real warning signs, each one backed by history, strategy, and some good old-fashioned political power plays. Now, Trump isn't calling it a crash, but if you read between the lines, what he's actually doing is setting the stage for something big.
Ooh.
Today, I am going to break down each of these 4 factors, how they tie directly to Trump's comeback strategy, and most importantly, what you should be doing. Here's where it starts. The Trade War 2.0. Let's rewind a bit, all the way back to 1930. There was this law passed in the U.S. called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. Now, you're not alone if that name doesn't ring a bell. Most people haven't heard of it unless they're into economic history. But Warren Buffett? He's absolutely aware of what went down. Here's the short version. The U.S. government, trying to protect American farmers and workers during the early days of a recession, decided to slap heavy tariffs on imported goods. The idea was to make foreign products more expensive so people would buy American instead. Sounds like a simple fix, right? But what actually happened was the opposite. Other countries retaliated. One by one, they imposed their own tariffs on American goods. Global trade started to freeze. Instead of helping the economy, it ended up making things much, much worse. Businesses couldn't sell abroad, prices jumped, and international cooperation basically collapsed. What was already a rough recession spiraled into a full-blown catastrophe, the Great Depression. Now, here's the wild part. Between 1929 and 1932, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by nearly 90%. Think about that for...
Yeah, think about that. Hey, how you doing, guys? There's Baba G. Hey, Baba G. Said hi. Tic-tac-cola. Said hi. Hello. Baba G said hi. Okay, so you're all saying hi. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome aboard. What do you think? We ready for another depression? I don't think so, because the rest of the world is not as stupid as our present governmental system. And you don't realize that Donnie isn't just a moron. He's a hired moron. He was put there on purpose. He is a game show host. You know, I went into this pretty thoroughly this morning, but bottom line, all the other countries, they're not cutting out, free trade, right? They're just cutting the United States out of the equation. You know, Canada isn't freaking out. It's basically going, a good deal of the major oil that the United States was selling to make us the number one seller of oil was Canadian oil, sand oil, right? And Canada would pipe the raw materials down to us. We would clean it up a little bit and then put it on a boat and sell it as our product. Now that's turned off, and Canada has their own resources to make a finished product and put it on a boat and send it off. And now India and China used to be the largest consumers of our energy. Now they're not. Now they're going to Canada, and they're going to Venezuela, and they're going to Russia, and they're going to Iran. And in Iran, China and Iran are, China's getting the oil, and Iran is getting F-37s from China, right? Squadrons of them, right? And so, Iran has pilots, they've been flying F-4s that we gave them like back in 1962, but they have skill sets. And so you give them a really high-end Ferrari, so the aircraft that China is going to give Iran for oil is they're not trading cash, is that now Iran will have, somewhere between 40 and 120 state-of-the-art aircraft to go after Israel's F-15s and F-16s, which, are like 1970, 1980 aircraft, right? And they're great if you're bombing people who have no way to shoot at them, right? So that whole economic system is rejiggering itself into bricks, right? Let's see. And remember, whatever you write, put it in caps so I can see it. Is there any way that you can make the the emojis in caps? Because I can see a smiling guy. I can see that. And what is this black line in Pakistan? Oh yes, Pakistan. Now there's an interesting one. India, not India. Israel and Pakistan are starting to get a little futzy with each other, and they're both nuclear powers. So and Israel has already attacked Pakistan a few times in the last year and a half, since October 7th. And, they've attacked them in Syria, right? Or on the border. I think they did attack them in Pakistan in general because they were saying, oh, there's this terrible terrorist group that's, kicking back in Pakistan, so we're going to go get them. And so anyway, these, that's two right there. So they both have nuclear weapons. And, Israel is like, the Israeli people they don't understand what is happening. They've been told, propagandized to believe that it's a mortal threat. We have to go in there. Now they're realizing, no, this is just keeping Bibi in power, and it's this greater Israeli thing. And Americans are starting to realize, no, Israel owns our government. I mean, there's something wrong here. And everyone is starting to go, I don't know about this. They were fine being do, but now they're kind of going, I don't know about this. And, the recession really hasn't quite hit. But all of the numbers, when Sleepy Joe was president, he had gotten us through the last hard edge of the pandemic. And actually, the United States fared the best of all the industrial nations from the pandemic. And not because of what great stuff that Donnie did, no, but the last 2 years of it was in JoJo's court, and he did all the things, and people didn't like that he made them have masks and blah blah blah. But we got our our thing where we had the corralled folk be the pile of corona, and it gave us an immunity. What do they call it? Corral immunity or group immunity or something immunity. Anyway, so we did that, and then we started pasting our economy back, and Joe was saying America's back and you can depend on us and da-da-da-da. Well, then, and see, JoJo did stuff just like Donnie did. He used the pen, for executive orders. He didn't really get stuff through Congress. Like first time out, Donnie's only thing he got through Congress was his big, beautiful bill of $1 trillion tax break for the uber rich and the taxation of the poor. And that's why our economy kind of went, kind of for shit. And so JoJo kind of, rejiggered things and got deals, and we were doing business again, and things, like I said, the United States came out of the pandemic economically better than I think any other industrial guys. And so we were doing fine. We were moving forward. We're going to become a greenwashed state, and all is good and beautiful. And we were there for diversity and equity and inclusiveness and all that kind of good stuff. And then Donnie comes in, right? And he jiggers he didn't win by a gigantic amount. What happened was he won by the amount of the people who stayed home, right? And he did win, but he didn't, this is the largest, blah, blah, blah. No, sorry. And so here he is. We're in 6 months. And so everything, the guy who, has the numbers at the bottom page of who gets employed and who, how many people are unemployed, he came out and said, look, this things are going down, not up, and with JoJo, things were kind of going up. And, people could think about maybe leaving that job to get a better job, and employers had to pay more money to get employees, right? There was a lack of employees. So, all of those kind of positive things were there. And now it's going the other way. And I keep telling folk that this ain't just because Donnie's a moron. He was put there. He is a game show host. He's reading a script. Everyone in Congress is reading a script. Anyone who, Elon Musk is reading a script. There is no honest person. There are a few who are trying. They're given a script too. That's called the loyal opposition. Like AOC and that whole crew, and that black lady. I forgot her name, but she's a lawyer. And she is sharp as you don't want to go up against her. She's like, woo. And, even Donnie's son tried to take her to the Woodhouse and sued her for, slander. And she just ate him alive. So it's from my point of view, it's kind of amusing to watch all this stuff. The TV pundits, the humorists, we go at it. But, George Carlin put it all down 40 years ago, All of those clowns belong to the country club, and we don't, So it isn't until the American folk, and they're starting to understand, they closed the Congress early and sent them home because they didn't want Congress to vote on a thing to, expose the Epstein files. Obviously, Donnie's all over it. That's his, thing. If you lived in New York and read the New York Post and look at page 6, you don't need the Epstein files. Just go look at New York Post from between 1970 and 2010, and it's better than the Epstein files. Anyway, so America is being brought down, and so Russia is being taken out, and parts of Europe are going to be taken out. And my buddy, I forget his name, but he really does a great job. I've shown him a number of times. He's I don't know if he's Palestinian or what country from that neck of the woods, but he's really an American, right? He grew up in America. He may not have been born here. I think he was. His family came here, and he's extremely educated. And he really, he's saying what's going on. He says that the planet is being reorganized, And all of the, old, Western motifs of centralized power, through corruption of imperial corporate states going in and stealing individual countries' stuff, like Burkina Faso, that they have a new leader who's like not taking any prisoners, and they have just been, they're in part of the Hellas, in that center part of Africa, and the edges of it, like where they are countries that don't really have any resources. So the Europeans and others have never, like the guys there in Sierra Leone and Darfur, they're just getting eaten alive. I mean, they talk about the Gaza Strip being terrible. Gaza Strip has 2-point-something million people. Sierra Leone and that neck of the woods where there's a lot of oil, Nigeria, a lot of oil, a lot of gold, a lot of rare minerals. And it's not just their countries fighting each other. No, there's France and England and the United States and Russia and China and everybody else giving everyone weapons to kill each other so they can, after everyone's dead, they can take all the stuff. And things are coming to a head. I mean, I don't know if you guys are interested in astrology, but we are no longer in the Piscean age. We're about 20 years in a Venn diagram where we're in the Piscean age and the Aquarian age at the same time. Now we're pretty much in a total Aquarian age. And what that leans itself into is understanding through truth and responsibility, honor, and self-individual integrity. Whereas the Piscean age is more about bullying, violence, ego, nihilism, that kind of stuff. What we've seen for the last, 6 to 10,000 years, all the empires, all of that, right? And now, what we don't realize is, yes, so there's this new energy within inside. Like I said, if I was 30 years younger, I would go to India, right? Not India, Africa, right? And be part of that, building the new thing, right? And because everyone in India is realizing this, they're not going to be chumped again. And the rich folk who take the power from the European corruptness, they can't do that anymore. So we're in an interesting time. And what are you guys saying? Remember, put this stuff in caps. I can't read it when it's message restricted. Okay. Kristen Martin, your message is restricted. Did you restrict it, Kristen, or did somebody else do it? Anyway, so I'm doing this show. I have 3 devices. I have my laptop, which I just got fixed, and I can do it off of that. But, it's really interesting. Each of these different devices, they're all the same, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob, but somehow, as I would use them mostly, they got a crew, right? And so my other phone, this thing is kind of like a tablet to me that I'm using right now. But my phone, I got that last September during the event, right? And it's a different, it's the same everything, but each 3 of these devices, interacts with the data in a different way. So the phone seems to get, every show I've done with the phone so far has been more than 70 people have watched the show. My other phone, 3 people watch. My laptop, maybe 20 people watch. So anyway, each of them gives the live chat in a different way. Right? Get back here. So I'm kind of bureaucratically and digitally handicapped, right? I really have no idea about any of this stuff. And my dealing with anything is face-to-face. When I can deal with things face-to-face, when I can look you in the eye and you can look me in the eye, yeah, I can. That's why I was a great negotiator, right? That's why I worked for the corporate world, because they didn't have me doing digital stuff or bureaucratic stuff. No, they had me when it was time to negotiate the deal. That's where they had me, right? And I wouldn't be like, the boss, but I would be the person who would interact with everyone. So I never had a stick on the fight. I never had anything to prove. I was going to get my nice little, reimbursement or payday, no matter what happened, right? But I had an unbelievable ability to bring forth a good outcome for everyone. Everyone signed a contract, everyone made money, everybody was happy, everyone patted me on the back. And that's why I kept having employment, And it was great because I didn't have to make a lot of money. I didn't have to work hard. I could work 11 weeks a year. I did that for 10 years and did fine. And then, each of those little contracts, each year, maybe I had 4 projects a year, right? And maybe the project would take me 4 weeks, or maybe the project would be done in 4 days. Whatever what it was, I would end up hanging out with these guys for at least a month. And maybe, like 2 or 3 weeks before the project started, so I could figure out what the strategy would be. Or on the other end, after it was done and everyone felt great about it, these guys would, they lived a hedonist life that was unbelievable. I mean, they had like 11-figure salaries, and they were overextended. Me, I had like a 4-figure salary or a 5-figure salary per year, and people said, "Wow, you made that kind of money in 11 weeks a year. You should work all year round. You'll be a millionaire." And I said, "I don't need be a millionaire. Like right now, when I died in 2014, I came out the other side. I kind of really started to go, okay, that was fun. And God said, hey, that's not a sin. That was good. You needed to do that. You had to see what it was. You had to experience it. Okay. If you do it again, it's not going to be good for you. But this one, not so bad. So I lost 250 pounds. I was a dead guy. Every organ was dead. I regenerated everything through God's love, right? Because I'm God's doula. I'm God's lucky guy. And there are a lot of us out here, right? Anyway, so one of the things I realized strategically I needed to do is not to live that way anymore. So to not live that way anymore, I had to cut down on my consumption and what I had. And I basically sold, everything and gave the proceeds to the poor. That's, when the rich guy asked Jesus, how do I get into heaven? He says, well, sell all your stuff and give the proceeds to the poor. And that's what I did. Right? So I kept my one little place here in the deep green because I needed to, and that was my little plan. I got this place because it's beautiful and gorgeous and out of the way, and all the water is good, air is good, everything I needed was here. And I built I never built a big house. I never had a big footprint on the property. I basically camp here. So my taxes on this property is like next to nothing. So that's my rent, like $130 a year to have a place to stay. And that's pretty good. And 320 days of the year, it's beautiful. It's like this. It's like that. Right? 360 days of the year, it's like that. Right? But, 40 days a year, it's like ridiculously cold. And like last winter, it was like 100 days that were like ridiculously cold. And I just, go to this other place and sleep on concrete and take care of really squirrely people, just to stay warm. And it wasn't that warm either. But anyway, that's what I do. And God takes care of me. And, that experience, it wore out certain joints in my body. Well, that forced me to take care of whatever that was that I was putting off, right? So that's how it works. I'm put in a position to do the right thing all the time. And sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's not, right? But I'm very aware of everything around me. And that goes out like everywhere. So I can see what's going on in the world. I don't have the internet, don't have television, I don't have any of that kind of media. I have public radio that's a little sketchy, and I have this drunk minister on his AM radio band out of this barn who's going on and on about end times coming. And like Jesus said, and, wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, rumors of pestilence, we don't know. So anyway, so there's 5 of you, 2 thumbs up. How about some thumbs up more? And you want to get a hold of me personally? Got any questions that you can, message, whatever. Does it say restricted? Retracted. Message retracted. I didn't get to read it. I love you guys. My prayers are always out there with you. Bubba G. Bubba G, you get a hold of me on the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and we can have a private conversation. So, and if you live in America, just leave me your phone number. I'll give you a buzz. My phone doesn't go outside of the Americas. I don't have that, whatever that was, Gmail. No, what was that thing that allows you to call anybody in Europe? I had it for a little while. And then they changed, and I can't deal with the change of the protocol, because, I figure it out, I get it working, it works pretty good, and then they change the protocol, and then you have to, if you don't read a 900-page agreement, you just hit the button, anyway, so that's what it is, but we are already in strange times, if you don't understand that, I don't know where you are. I mean, I'm like out here in the middle of nowhere that I get nothing, but I understand the strange times that are going on because I've experienced a lot of them. I've lived long enough. I mean, we had a depression in the United States and the Western industrial world between 1969 and 1991. People, I mean, they call it the oil embargo, but that was, there was a zillion oil tankers out there in the Atlantic waiting to come in. No, they just cut the consumption of oil in the United States so they could charge more for it. Right? Before the oil embargo, a gallon of gasoline cost 30-something cents, under $1, maybe, somewhere between 30 and 60 cents, right? In, 1969. And back earlier, when I was buying gasoline to put into a vehicle that I was driving around in New York City, and that's in New York City that had its own tax. First time I paid for gasoline, it was 16 cents a gallon. Plus they gave you a plate and green stamps, The whole thing about oil is there's so much of it in the ground. In 91, they had this little conference in France. That's why we have the environmental, French, Paris, anyway, the bottom line is all of the people got together, and Tesla and Eiffel had, gotten some pretty wicked technologies going where the planet Earth was going to be sustainable and everyone, would get abundance, right? And that would be the benchmark of what our civilization would be based on, that people would have equal abundance so they could all do their best. Everyone would get medical, everyone would get educated, everyone have a house, everyone had something to eat, everyone could get around. Why should we have passports? Look at the EU. They don't have really passports. Why? It's to control us, right? So we're heading towards a serious, especially in the United States, but pretty much in the whole country. Africa might be the one country that breaks out of that. The BRICS may be the savior of that, meaning because, between China and India, that's a bigger economic thing than the rest of the world, right? So bigger than us for sure, bigger than the EU. The EU used to have a bigger GDP than the United States, and when they started in 1970 or 80 or whenever they started, I think 80s. And now they don't, meaning they are going down too. So anyway, the best thing you can do is build a dynamic around yourself via your community, your neighborhood, right? Get to know your neighbor, right? If they have a different opinion than you do, that's fine. And tell them that, and that's one reason I'm a good negotiator. I mean, a couple of years ago, was my car wasn't doing that good, and every mechanic sucked. They'd take my money, and my car would get even worse. And so this guy had my car, and he didn't touch it, and it didn't, and I'm just frustrated, and I walk out of there, and I said, jerk, and some guy walks in, what's wrong? I said, this guy, he just sucks, blah, blah. He's my friend. Can't say that about him. I'm going to kill you. I said, whoa. You're going to kill me? Why? You don't even know me. Well, I said, listen, let's roll this back. Let me apologize. Huh? I want to apologize. Anything that I might have said to upset you, I apologize, right? Anything that comes out of my mouth, I apologize. Anything you see me do, I apologize. Because you have to realize, it's just me. I don't represent anything more than me. I don't represent any ideology, any concept, any religion, or anything. Right? And so we start talking, and I let him say, so tell me about you. And I just shut up and listen to everything he said. And when he would come to an issue that was bothering him, that he was identifying me as part of that problem, I said, I hear you saying blah, 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 blah. I repeat what he said. And, the third time I did, he said, wow, you're the only person who ever listens to what I say. Everyone says I'm stupid. I said, you're not stupid. You're actually quite intelligent. You just need a filter. A filter? Yeah. A filter. You look at what's going on and don't identify yourself with what's going on. Just see what's going on. Use a filter. Don't see anything around you as a threat, because it really isn't. And the better you can see what's going on around you, whatever threat there is, you'll see it so far away that you can just get out of the way. And that's the general process that I use. And I suggest that you might try it too. And what that takes is that you have a conscious intent on everything you do, right? And that intent isn't something selfish, right? That intent, like Donald Trump, everything he does, he has definitely a conscious intent to increase his wealth, to steal, lie, cheat, and whatever. Get over on everything, right? Not to serve the public, not to be, it's not what you can get from your country, but what you can do for your country. He's definitely not that. Or is anybody, but, neither is anybody in Congress. Democrats, Republicans, they're all the same. They're all out for themselves, right? And that's why, and this ain't, lots of historians would say, history doesn't repeat itself, it just rhymes. And so, the song is coming around again. But every time this happens, the lucky bastards and the people who, want to do the right thing step up and stand out and help change the world for the better. And we seem to have to do this two-step, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 back. And so that's kind of where we're at, right? But the clowns who are in there now are hitting it with gusto instead of, 2 steps forward and 1 step back, it's like, JoJo was 2 steps forward. They want to take 20 steps back, to make America back what it was, where all the white people are in charge, and, blah, 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 right? So, like Emmett Till, right? He is in the 50s, I think, and he's up in Chicago with his mom. His mom sends him back to Alabama, where she came from, so he's in a country where it's cooler and not so much street stuff going on. And so he goes back there, and he's with his family down there, and they're in the store, and they buy something, and they come out. Now, he doesn't wolf whistle at this girl. No, what happened was this white girl looked at him and said, boy, he's a pretty boy. Don't you think? And she was talking to her girlfriend. Don't you think he's a pretty boy? And they, as girls talk about boys, Anyway, so that girl went home and told her daddy. And her daddy, being, the grand wizard of whoop-de-doo, came and got the boys and went to that house, took the boy out, and beat the ever-living snot out of him, killed him, and then just beat his face into a pulp because he was a pretty boy. You want to see what a pretty boy looks like now? That's what they did. And so, the cops got him. They didn't even look for who did this. The rumor was that he whistled at a girl, and that was good enough to get him dead. So he gets sent back to Chicago, and his mother doesn't have a closed casket because he is messed up. They have him laying in the funeral home, and thousands of people come and see this kid's face totally messed up. And she goes out and gets the AP and every newspaper person, might even be TV stations. And that's one of the major things that charged the civil rights movement. And so it's sad that things like that have to happen. They don't, right? And we're no longer in the Piscean age where it's the seesaw of emotion. We're in the Aquarian age, where more and more people, everyone's going to feel. I mean, right now, I don't know if you have been feeling the difference, but it's occurring, in your physical self, in your emotional self, in your psychic and spiritual self. You're starting to see what's going on around us, and you're seeing that it's not the story that's being, propagandized or told to us. You're seeing what's going on, and you're seeing what needs to be done, and you're realizing you better get into it, because in reality, once you get involved in doing your best, your life becomes better. Well, there's no one here listening to this, and I hope others will come back and listen to it later today. Now, you're going to have to wait again. When I use this device, I put it on public, and yet it won't, when it is putting it up into my channel, this device, it says it's in public, but when it's up there, it's in private. So I have to go in and redo it, not redo it, but, change the little settings, and then I make it public. So that's what it is. And this phone seems to get out amongst more people. And again, more of those thumbs up, more, comments on here. It's nice that you, say hi and powerful army. Yep. But it'd be nice. I mean, this morning show, the first comment was a really interesting one, like a paragraph, right? And again, if you put it in capitals so I can read it without my glasses, because I normally don't, wear my glasses. I don't know where my glasses are. So anyway, from here we are. At the deep green. It's about 72 degrees. Not as last week in the hundreds, so it's like way cooler. But this is how pretty it is. And this ain't even the pretty part. Where I live, it's much more, wow. It's still nice, but I guess I'm prejudiced. Anyway, I love you guys. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be. Love you guys. Stay well. All my prayers are with you.